Ladies and gents, welcome to UX, and this is Iran just challenged the US Navy that its entire fleet was wiped out in 48 hours. Okay, so this is obviously a slightly older video, but this is a video about how US have wiped out most of the, Iranian Navy in 48 hours. Hours, not weeks, not days, not months, hours. 48 hours is an insane statement, right? Not many countries or any apart from USA can flex like that. This is by the channel of Military Show, obviously. Let's do this one.
Been knocked out. Those were the words of US President Donald Trump on March 3rd, following 48 hours that had utterly ruined Iran's naval fleet. Iran challenged the US. That was a mistake. Bombs and missiles flew and Iran's entire fleet was wiped out in just 2 days. This is historically bad for Iran, and it's only going to get worse for a regime that is collapsing before our eyes. After initial American and Israeli strikes on Iran wiped out a huge chunk of the country's leadership, Iran responded with attacks on several US military bases. Okay, the US said, "We see your base attacks and will raise you with the destruction of your entire naval fleet." US Tomahawks flew in an operation that overwhelmed any strategy that Iran's navy had, and the results speak for themselves. Iran has lost 11 of its warships, along with several of its attack submarines, and the US has unleashed a devastating wave of firepower that serves as a reminder to Iran's crumbling regime, as if one was needed, that anything Iran can try is just going to be met with a bigger and far more devastating response from the US. In a few minutes, we're going to explain how the US left Iran's entire navy crippled in just 48 hours. Before we do, let's take a deeper look at the results. We can sum it up in 7 words: the Gulf of Oman has been emptied. That's according to the US Central Command, or CENTCOM, which took to X to explain what it pulled off in just 2 days. 2 days ago, the Iranian regime had 11 ships in the Gulf of Oman. Today, they have 0. The Iranian regime has harassed and attacked international shipping in the Gulf of Oman for decades. Those days are over, CENTCOM declared. There's a hint here about why the US took aim at Iran's navy, which we'll get into later, but the big news here is that some of Iran's most important warships are out of the war just days into the fight, destroying Iran's naval posture in an instant. And we don't have to take CENTCOM's word for it. Satellite photographs are already emerging that showcase the scale of the damage that America's strikes have caused. The Iris Makran, which is Iran's first forward-based ship, is down.
Yeah. Look, I know people are going to say, like, what are you talking about? How are they still laying mines and threatening Strait of Hormuz? These are warships, not any speedboats that you can just take from any civilian or fisherman and just make that into some kind of a navy boat or something. No, these are proper warships. They had 11 of them in 48 hours. USA sank all of them. That is a fact, right? So after that, if they just carry some small boat, attack a ship here and there, attack a cargo ship, threaten Strait of Hormuz, that doesn't mean they still have navy. Like, they can just take, boat after boat. Does that mean they still have navy? No, they're just trying their hard. 11 warships that they had sank.
That vessel was struck while it was moored in Bandar Abbas, naval news reports. And it means that the US has taken out what was once an oil tanker, but has since become a military vessel capable of supporting helicopter operations. With a displacement of 120,000 tons, the Iris Makran was among the largest vessels in the Middle East region. Now, satellite photographs show fires on its berth and smoke streaming out of the warship's central portion. A Jamaran-class corvette that was stationed at a pier in Chabahar has also been taken out, armed with anti-ship and surface-to-air missiles along with torpedoes. This type of ship was supposed to be central to Iran's naval strategy. Iran has 6 of them, and at least one now stuck at Konarak Naval Base with smoke streaming out of it. The list goes on and on. The Telegraph reveals that satellite imagery captured by Planet Labs shows the Bandar Abbas region, where at least 11 of Iran's warships were docked as recently as February 22nd, is now blanketed in a smog of thick black smoke following America's heavy bombing campaign. The remains of the Iris Makran can be seen in the photos that the Telegraph shares. However, the biggest hit came against Iran's best warship, the Iris Shahid Bagheri. The closest thing that Iran has to an aircraft carrier.
Yeah, this is the big tanker, I think, or was it a cargo ship? They turned into drone carrier, as far as I know, which they took out. And I remember watching a video from one of the channels which showed how Lockheed Martin's one of the missiles that worked perfectly here. That kind of blew my mind, like all that R&D, all that research, and finally paying off here, right? Taking this out on other ship as well, the flagships basically.
The Iris Shahed Bagheri is the center of Iran's mobile drone threat. Referred to by WION as a mothership, the vessel has been used by Iran to launch drones at US bases and Gulf countries from the moment that the US campaign against Iran began. Like the Iris Makran, the Iris Shahed Bagheri started life as a commercial ship that Iran converted into a warship, which perhaps gives us an idea of why Iran's navy isn't all that the country's regime needed it to be. What we've seen over the past 48 hours is what weapons built for war can do when they target commercial ships converted for war. The UK Defence Journal adds that the Iris Shahed Bagheri has also been converted to launch and retrieve helicopters, making it an even bigger threat than its drone usage implies. But now it's gone. I guess you could say it's the first aircraft carrier to be sunk since World War II, Cappy Army says Riley in his coverage of the US blitz of Iran's naval assets.
Oh yeah.
Might be a little bit of a stretch, at least when comparing the Iris Shahed Bagheri to US carriers such as the USS Abraham Lincoln, which has been playing a key role in this story. But the warship was among Iran's best, and its loss will sting because it means that the country's strategy of unleashing drones against America's bases and vessels has just taken a massive hit. Already reeling, Iran's regime would have been wondering how it could get any worse during the 48 hours of destruction that the US unleashed. It could get worse, and it did. The Telegraph explains, reporting, US forces have also mostly destroyed the headquarters of the Iranian naval fleet in the port of Bandar Abbas, while Ali Shamkhani, an admiral in Iran's elite Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, has been killed in an Israeli airstrike. So Iran has lost its entire fleet in the Gulf of Oman.
All that pretty much happened very earlier, right? Like the operation started and like slowly the dust settled and the information came out and people realized that most of the people, the top leader that was deleted, kind of happened in the early strikes, like first strike or something, first 48 hour. And then slowly in that week, like 90% of the people you hear about that were deleted and destroyed happened during that time, which is insane amount of precision.
Its naval headquarters has been devastated, and one of its top admirals is 6 feet under. This isn't just bad for Iran, it's historically bad. And there will be Iranians of a certain age who will feel a massive sense of déjà vu right now. Iran has been here before, watching on helplessly as the US crippled the country's entire fleet. This has to feel like Operation Praying Mantis, only with a major twist that we'll explain if you stick with us. During the late 1970s and into the 80s, Iran made a habit of attacking the US. 1979 saw Iranian revolutionaries take 52 Americans hostage, holding them for 444 days. The US launched the Desert One rescue mission, which failed catastrophically and left 8 US service members dead. In 1983, an Iranian suicide bomber killed 241 US Marines and sailors in Beirut. And 4 years later, the US experienced more Middle East humiliation when an Iraqi jet attacked the USS Stark, killing 37 US sailors. Then came April 18, 1988.
It is insane to think about. There was a time when things like that did happen, right? Like everything that could have gone wrong did, right? Iraqi jet attacking a US warship. Imagine if that happened today, like Iranian or some other country's jet coming even close to a US warship with the Aegis system and everything. That's impossible. So that was just a few decades ago, but it was a completely different landscape compared to today. Today, so many defenses, so many technology, even the satellites, like eyes from the space and everything, makes US so overpowered that like even the news of like something even came close to shooting a ship, it just feels weird, right? Iran flags on like we targeted US ships, not attacked, not like hit, not targeted. Because everyone knows it's not even going to come close to, like getting damaged. But targeted, that's a flex for them.
Operation Praying Mantis was launched, and in a matter of hours, the US destroyed a pair of Iranian oil platforms, a missile boat, 2 frigates, and 3 armed speedboats. In a matter of hours, half of Iran's navy had been crippled in what was the worst blow delivered in modern times to a navy that had existed since the First Persian Empire over 2,500 years ago. Note the word was. Operation Praying Mantis will feel like a picnic compared to what just happened to Iran's navy. Now here's the twist. While older Iranians will be feeling a sense of deja vu over what just happened, they'll also be asking themselves how it happened at all. Iran has been preparing for this type of fight with the United States ever since Operation Praying Mantis. That single day led to a complete rewrite of Iranian naval doctrine to ensure that nothing like the 1980s embarrassment would ever happen again. They came up with a plan to overwhelm American ships with swarms of fast attack boats, Cappy Army explains, adding, "They planned to fire land-based anti-ship missiles at US forces. They had a whole strategy of using their submarines to ambush US vessels." Knowing that it couldn't stack up to the US on the pure naval firepower front, Iran had developed a layered and asymmetric strategy that was supposed to see its fast attack boats slip in and out of range, delivering shots as they went, all while Iran's submarines and missiles pelted anything that the US sent Iran's way. But nothing went according to Iran's plan. And the reason why is that Iran had been preparing for an attack like Operation Praying Mantis, and the US delivered something entirely different. But before we go deeper into that, if this is the kind of insight you want more of, make sure you're subscribed to the military.
Oh, okay. Otherwise, the grooves or something. This is like platforms, right? That goes up and down. That looks like that. Why is it like different shaped? I don't know. It is platforms, right? Why otherwise, what is this here?
Before we go deeper into that, if this is the kind of insight you want more of, make sure you're subscribed to the military show. We break it down like this every single week. Iran's biggest problem during America's 48-hour blitz of its navy was that it never saw the particular tactics that the US used coming. A naval doctrine created in the 1990s to counter the type of threat that ruined Iran's navy in the late 80s was never going to work. Iran had planned for what amounted to a ship-to-ship fight, which is where its fast attack boats would have a chance to excel. The Iranian regime thought its navy would be able to confine the much larger US ships in constricted waters, such as the Strait of Hormuz, which we'll be covering in a few minutes. Stuck in those waters, America's ships would be sitting ducks for the missiles launched from the fast boats, along with torpedoes fired by submarines and drones launched from Iran's makeshift aircraft carriers. But by 2026, the US knew what Iran was going to do. Persistent drone coverage combined with other forms of intelligence meant that the US knew where Iran's boats were at all times. Iranian warships haven't been able to get close to what the US has sent to the Persian Gulf region, because military tech, as surprising as this appears to have been for Iran, has advanced since the 1990s.
That's an understatement of a whole another level, right? Because since 90s, see commercial tech that you see of, like imagine how computers were in 90s. And the type of computers we have even in our phones, smallest device. What is it, like greeting cards? Greeting cards. Processor on those things are much stronger than it was, right? So since 90s, commercial things have gotten so powerful. Imagine military things. Not to mention all the satellites, all the different tech that also evolved. It exponentially goes up, right? So right now, America has power to like literally see everything. Infrared satellites that can see people, like detect people smoking. Like it can detect like a cigarette was burned, like something like that's insane, right? So the level of tech that is today, like USA knows everything. USA probably knows where the launchers are, but IRGC's head people probably doesn't even know that. IRGC people like, in that like rough region, I'm sure there are launchers there. Give order to the people that are there, launch your things. They don't know specifically where they are, but America knows because of the satellite. That's just insane.
So has America's strategy. Iran ended up bringing a knife to a gunfight, and the US said, screw you. America wasn't about to play the fast boat game. Its strategy was simple and utterly devastating. Ruin Iran's fleet using Tomahawk missiles.
Iran didn't brought knife to a gunfight. Iran brought knife to a sniper rifle fight, because America's way far in the distance with a proper 50 cal sniper rifle, and Iran is with the like knife looking around. That's what's happening.
Missiles launched from so far away that Iran's entire naval strategy wouldn't be able to make it out of port. The US used the anti-ship missiles that Iran was expecting it to use during Operation Praying Mantis. But in 2026, as part of Operation Epic Fury, the US unleashed Tomahawk cruise missiles at Iran's navy. Those missiles have a much longer standoff range than anything that Iran expected the US to use, which means the warships and platforms used to launch them never get within range of Iran's warships. The Iris Makran was a casualty of this very strategy.
There is a precedent for this. During Falklands, Britain did this because Argentinians' cannon, or Argentinians' range was like something around 9 miles, while British range was around 17 miles. So Britain literally parked their ships 10, 11 miles away and just bombed everything. America's literally doing that with aircraft carriers and everything, staying far away from the range but still bombing things.
Strategy, as Tomahawk missiles launched from hundreds of miles away slammed into the ship, one after the other and in such rapid succession that whatever defenses Iran had loaded into the vessel never had a chance to stop what the US unleashed. Those Tomahawks were likely launched by the Ali Berke-class destroyers that Iran expected to be getting up close and personal with its fast attack boats. And with their 1,600-kilometer or around 1,000-mile range, those missiles were the only thing that Iran's idling warships saw before they were destroyed. Iran was waiting for America's
I
warships.
saw a clip in one of the videos, like it was insane. The Tomahawk cruise missile passes by, like a jet plane or something. That is insane that's a missile like cruising through at subsonic speed.
To arrive so that it could put its naval doctrine into practice. What it got was a horde of powerful missiles, and Iran's sinking navy never even saw the ships that fired them. Then there was the follow-up. Max Afterburner explains in his examination of America's 48 hours of epic fury, stating, with Iran's navy basically being a pincushion at this point, soaking up these Tomahawk missiles, F-35s followed up, likely with JDAM bombs, for precision cleanup. This was a genius strategy by the US. It subverted Iran's expectations by striking Iran's warships from afar, and when those ships were already in disarray, the US got up close and personal in ways that Iran never expected. This wasn't.
Let's be honest. Anytime anyone plays a video game, they always find a way to make a build with a sniper rifle. Doesn't matter which game it is. If it's a bow game, you'll like try to like put points in bows so you can shoot people from distance without even getting touched. There is certain power to that. Even people playing video game feels that. So if America can snipe these things from the distance with these cruise missiles, why would they not? It's badass. It's a whole other level of badass. I don't even need to come close. I can just stay here and like accurately shoot things down. What you gonna do? This is literally that.
To naval battle. It was demolition of a force that had been set up specifically to counter a type of threat that the US never intended to present. And it led to America negating every tactic that Iran had in just 48 hours. As the US Naval Institute, or USNI, reveals, the US has been geared up for Iran's naval tactics for years, which is what has led to America conducting such a destructive campaign against Iran's navy. Iran has flaunted this asymmetric naval force of missile, midget submarines, naval mines, and anti-ship missile batteries in its threats to shut down the Strait of Hormuz in previous years. American naval forces in the region have been geared against these swarm threats, including Hellfire-armed Seahawk helicopters aboard Abraham Lincoln, USNI says. The mention of the Strait of Hormuz brings us back to what we mentioned about Iran's strategy of constricting US warships and why it all fell apart for the regime. However, what we're now seeing may not quite be what you think you're seeing. On the surface, America's firestorm of Tomahawk fury seems to be about destroying Iran from a military perspective. It isn't, at least not entirely. That's according to Dr. Andreas Boehm, who is an expert on the Middle East working out of Switzerland's University of St. Gallen. Boehm tells The Telegraph, if you compare their navy with Donald Trump's big beautiful armada, it's more like a dwarf. He adds, it's been very much weakened by sanctions, its material is outdated, and when you look at the Air Force, for example, mostly all the aircraft is from the Shah era and is US built. It's really old.
If you compare insert here Navy with American Navy, nope, the sentence failed already, move on. Why are we even talking about this? America's one of the biggest, if not the biggest flex is its Navy. And America's overpowered as F. Most powerful military by a mile, by far, by 100 miles. And yeah, their Navy is much powerful than Iran's. Like, this is fraction of US's Navy. Fraction is like, yeah, fine, you do your thing. Fine, Lincoln and Ford, do your thing. Like, we have many other things that guards Pacific and Japan and like Philippines because of China, by the way, Arctic, and by the not to mention mainland US and around it. But yeah, there's a small thing for Iran as well.
In other words, Iran is nowhere near as strong as it presents itself to be, whether that's on the naval or aerial fronts. So what the US just pulled off wasn't really about weakening Iran's military, merely because that military and its navy never truly presented a threat to the US in the first place. What America's 48 hours of strikes are really all about is making sure that the Strait of Hormuz can be reopened as quickly as possible after Iran tried to shut up shop in the wake of the initial hours of Operation Epic Fury. The US needs that strait to stay open, as does most of the rest of the world. And the reason why is that the Strait of Hormuz is among the most important transit routes. Iran may not be capable of presenting much of a kinetic threat to the US, Baum declares, but what they are capable of is asymmetric warfare, and we can see this in the Strait of Hormuz, where insurance prices have skyrocketed and companies are refraining from sending their ships through. On the
Okay, you know in Witcher 3, again, if you don't play video games, you're like, what are you on about? You know in Witcher 3 or in Witcher lore, there are this square tile which is supposed to be this gorilla type, like elf people. So you see them like, hiding in like woods and things and just suddenly attacking and running away. Now, can they take Nilfgaardian Empire? No, they can't. But they're still annoying because they are like, like hiding in bushes and attacking. You can think of Iran's asymmetrical tactic like that. They can't fight America, not even close, not even in their dreams. So what they do is they hide like missiles and things, and when everything's destroyed, when they get right window, they launch it against some other countries. Not at America because they can't, but other countries to put pressure on, shut down routes and everything, threaten the routes. There you go.
the crude oil front, The Guardian reports that about 20% of all crude oil shipments have to pass through the Strait of Hormuz at some point. About 12.5% of all the oil used by countries on the American continents transits through the strait, which is dwarfed by the 45.7% of oil that China receives from tankers that sail through the Strait of Hormuz. This single passage of water is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and Iran has been trying to take advantage of that fact by using its navy to lean on the one piece of leverage that it has in this entire conflict. Ebrahim Jabari, who is a senior advisor.
Does China's 40 whatever percent of oil come from Iran? Because if that's the case, Blockade literally blocked Iran. Why is China not saying like, oh, no, this can't happen? Like, yeah, no, we are sending our navy if you do this. Like, in Cold War, Soviet Union and USA literally threatened each other all the time. Like made alliances with other countries just because they're opposite of each other. That's how Cold War was. Right now, that's the level with China and USA. China is second most powerful country. USA is the first, right? So if 40% of oil is reliant on Iran and Iran is blockaded, why is China like, okay, I don't care, don't block my ship. It's 40%. That is literally life-threatening for my country. I'm going to have to respond with naval military power or something. Why are they not threatening US? Is US letting go of Chinese cargo? Like, I generally don't know, comment down, because I'm pretty sure I remember somebody saying like, even after blockade, the first 2-3 days, USA let go of the Chinese cargo. Is USA doing this? Because it would make sense. Like, why try to fight China while you're trying to fight Iran? That would be weird.
To the commander-in-chief of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, made that abundantly clear on March 2nd when he said, "The strait is closed. If anyone tries to pass, the heroes of the Revolutionary Guard and the regular Navy will set those ships ablaze." Jabari has also claimed that Iran will start attacking oil
Every time they do this, every time. The heroes of Revolutionary Guard and regular Navy, heroes of IRGC and those other zones as well, even in their own military, they always like discriminate like at this level. IRGC is the top one, and yeah, by everyone else, like whatever, who cares? Regular Navy
will set those ships ablaze. Jabari has also claimed that Iran will start attacking oil pipelines in the coming days, and he claims that the price of oil will reach $200 per barrel. This is obvious grandstand, but there is a seed of legitimacy to these claims, given Iran's control over the Strait of Hormuz. However, maintaining that control requires warships, even if they are just the fast attack boats that Iran deploys. The US has just taken those ships out of the equation. Still, Iran's attempts to blockade the Strait of Hormuz have been successful up to this
That's a steam catapult. The steam coming out. Oh, that's awesome.
point. Cappy Army says that though some ships are going dark and trying to pass through, total transits via the strait are down by 80%. This has always been their greatest leverage, geopolitically speaking, to inflict maximum pain on global markets, Cappy Army adds. By taking away that leverage, the US also takes away the last scrap of hope that Iran had that it would come out on top in the war. Not that you would know that if you listen to Iran's propagandists. They've already claimed that Iran unleashed a hailstorm of ballistic missiles against the USS Abraham Lincoln, which is a claim that the US quickly debunked by releasing photographs of that aircraft carrier still very much in operation.
Oh, Abraham Lincoln is gone like that. It's like a small boat. They just, what are you talking about? It's humongous ship. Even America themselves can't sink their own aircraft carrier. How are you gonna do it? You can't just sink a giant ship like that, like it's a small thing. Come on.
Iran has also unleashed around 400 missiles and 1,000 drones against Gulf states such as Qatar and the United Arab Emirates. However, as Kapiami points out, this seemingly impressive number is actually far below what Iran unleashed in the wake of Operation Midnight Hammer in the summer of 2025, which saw the US and Israel take out much of Iran's nuclear infrastructure. It's all starting to feel like what we're seeing right now is the dying gasp of a regime that is trying to project power as everything that it's built falls apart. The Iranian naval doctrine didn't work. Scratch that, Iran's naval doctrine was so catastrophically flawed that it didn't account for the possibility the US might use anything other than anti-ship missiles to attack the Iranian fleet. As soon as the US changed just one piece of strategy that Iran expected it to use, Iran's warships were toast.
At this point, anyone, Iran or whatever, should expect US to do anything. If you hear a news like US use lasers from space and satellite to blow up certain boats and navies, like yep, seems about right.
And to make matters worse for Iran, the US is just getting started. That's according to US Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who spoke to reporters on March 2nd to say that what Iran is dealing with now is nothing compared to what's coming. The hardest hits are yet to come from the US military, Rubio declared, adding that the US has done what it's done so far to destroy the imminent threat that Iran posed.
Yeah, this is obviously old video. Then why am I watching this? Because things might heat up. And we need to know what happened at the start. So this was the thing that were happening at the start. Now imagine what's going to happen now. It's going to be much more intense.
Now we're seeing fronts opening up all over the Middle East as Iran's proxies, such as the Houthis, go on the attack. But for Iran's regime, the damage has already been done to a navy that was expected to put up far more of a fight than it has. Iran thought it knew what was coming from the US. In just 48 hours, the US shattered Iran's naval doctrine, and it's well on the way to stripping away one piece of leverage that Iran has in this fight. And deep in the heart of Moscow, there is one man who will be watching everything that is happening with increasing levels of distress. Russian President Vladimir Putin knows that the collapse of Iran's regime spells bad things for Russia. And to find out why, check out our video.
Okay. I mean, yeah, Russia relied on Iran a lot with the drones and everything. I don't know what ripple effect that had. I'm sure Russia's down on drones now for obvious reasons. But yeah, this is an old video, but the reason I'm watching is because these things are getting close. We might hear this 2.0 of this pretty soon. And I feel like USA might amp up the heat so much this time that there is not going to be second talks. The first talk will be enough. I think that's what they're going to do. Because America's seen like, okay, Iran is not backing down, so we really need to push things. Something like that. I don't know. Right, well, there you go. Iran just challenged the US Navy and its entire fleet was wiped out in 48 hours. But it's a military show. If you like my next one, subscribe and I'll see you next time.